So when I was in like later stages of primary school into high school, I just remember growing up, I didn't really feel like, I kind of knew I was Aboriginal, but then at the same time, like wasn't obviously so connected that I'd go through school and had these people that would be like you'd have all these like Aboriginal jokes and all these things that would happen. All these people would say things like that, and I never really, because I didn't feel connected. I was heading into high school. I just remember these like instances in high school especially when I first got there. All these people would say these jokes and make fucking fun of all like my culture and that, and I just remember like I'd always laugh and join in, and I fucking hate myself for it. I feel like the biggest fucking coward on earth because like I just joined in and laughed because I wanted to feel like a part of people, like a part of something, like because they were all my friends, and I had like friends, and at the time like they're young and they wouldn't really know any different either, but they knew it. I guess at the time they kind of knew what they were doing, but I would just laugh and I'd make jokes as well, just so I felt connected into that sort of sense of heading into high school, wanting to be accepted by everyone.
Yeah.
I'm someone who like wants that. I like being accepted, and yeah, it kind of was like, it was shit. Because now I look back on it and I think, you fucking idiot, like you absolute, because then you don't realise the impact that could have on everyone else around you. Because if I'm like sort of, I guess, you know, as simple as it sounds now, like if I'm enabling that as a kid, well then everyone else kind of looks at it and thinks it's okay.
Yeah.
Where it's not okay, you know? So I was kind of struggled with my connection to culture because all I just remember hearing is like, fuck, like they're drunks, you're like on the fucking sidewalk, like addicts, like just homeless, just fucking all this sort of stuff. But then kind of, I was very blessed that I grew up with like a lot of Islander boys as well. My best mate's is Maori. One of my best mates growing up was Samoan too. So I grew up with all the Islander boys, and they're very connected to their culture. And
They are, aren't they?
They
And
are.
it's something I look at because we've only in the last probably 6 years, 7 years, found connections to our Indigenous heritage as a family. And so, like when you enable Nan and Pop with an iPad for the first time in their life, what do? They don't know what to do other than just dig into your family history, right? They go on Ancestry.com.
That's exactly right.
And they start connecting the dots. And we always had photos of my Pop's mother.
Yeah.
And photos of her that, like, you can't tell because the quality of the photos, but you looked and you're like, there's got to be Indigenous background here. And, like, these photos, they grew up north. She spent a lot of time up north, Townsville area.
Yeah.
And we're like, man, there's got to be Indigenous heritage here. My nan started to search and connected a bunch of dots and found people in the family. And obviously, like you said at the time, it wasn't as, a lot of people kept it quiet.
Yeah.
A lot of people kept their Indigenous heritage quiet because they didn't want it to limit opportunities, which is so sad, but it's a fact of the past, right? And as we connected the dots and my Pop and Nan really dived into it, they're now super connected with the Indigenous community here in Wollongong. And Pop was actually invited to be part of the Land Council, and but he's getting a little bit old now that it wasn't the right move for him, but they go to all the picnics and they go to all the events, and
Beautiful.
They're super connected with the mob down here. So I get what you mean, where there's this period of our history as a country that is so underappreciated. And when you look at NZ, they have this, even the people who have no Indigenous background are beautifully connected to the culture that's a part of the land they live on.
Yeah.
And I wish we had that here. And I feel like we're getting better.
Yeah.
We're slowly getting, but we've still got huge steps to take to get to a point where we all as a country come together and appreciate that.
That's hit the nail on the head. Like you're exactly right, because we talk about that in our Indigenous camp, because a lot of people realise, like, if you don't know, like Indigenous, you have so many different mobs and countries and tribes most of them, there's like over 200 and something dialects of Indigenous language that people don't, or Aboriginal language that a lot of people don't understand. Where then Maori culture in New Zealand, they got one language, which makes, it's so easy for them. So I feel like if we ever had that back in the day, if we all did just had one language, we'd be a lot more connected than what we were, in I guess, in terms of things. But yeah, I think like their culture is just so, like, we always talk about it, like I'm envious of it, because they're just so, everyone knows all the same dances, the war dances and their huckers and all that, and it's beautiful to watch when you see them doing it, and I love it, and their greenstones and their tattoos and everything. We always talk about, like, even, like the Samoan and Tongan, like they're so like just connected in that one thing, where we're so big as Aboriginal culture, it just sort of differs from tribe to tribe, but at the same time, there's a beauty in that where you go somewhere different. So this is the thing too that I learnt that you look at Aboriginal painting, right? Aboriginal artwork, and it says dot painting. Well, that was actually only one tribe, and I think it was up in Darwin, all North Queensland. So that was only one tribe, but then it obviously just got made out to be like, oh, that's what Aboriginal art looks like. Where traditional art, different places, is so different to that too. But I guess it's a good thing because it kind of makes people think, oh, well, look at that beautiful Aboriginal art. But then you think, well, that's only one people's country too, which is, yeah.
I had an amazing experience at the start of last year. So I took a solo adventure for 10 days up to Port Douglas and just decided to go book myself an Airbnb and just go stay for 10 days by myself.
Yeah.
Just turn off social media, just like write, journal, and just go explore the area. For me, what popped out was I've explored a bunch of other countries with a lot of the time with my family, but I've never really explored my own backyard. And we have such a beautiful country and such a beautiful culture here that I thought, why don't I get up and explore, the only place in the world where 2 World Heritage listed sites meet in the Daintree Rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef. And so I went up, and this one day we took a tour out into the Daintree and on this bus with a bunch of people, and we went to, first stop was Mossman Gorge.
Yeah, okay.
And we went there, and there was an Aboriginal fella, Cameron, who sat us down, took us through a smoking ceremony before we went into one of the watering holes. And he actually showed us how they paint.
Yeah.
And the rocks that they use to get the colour.
Yeah, yeah.
Bro, it blew my mind. And him and I got a photo together after, and we're having a good yarn and just chatting about the way that their tribe, their mob used to migrate through different parts of the land, different parts of the year. Bro, it was so fascinating to me. And there's actually still a mob there that still live that lifestyle, that ancient lifestyle that they used to live and still migrate through the land. And bro, it's so interesting to me. Even through the time of our country's history in 2020 when we had those really bad bushfires, right?
Yeah.
And it started to become aware, and we started to hear the voice of the indigenous community talking about the way that they used to burn off the land to protect.
Yes, no one knows that. Not a lot of people know that, do they?
And I'm like, oh fuck, how are we not learning off these people? How are we not allowing them to educate us on how to look after land that they looked after for 60,000 years before we thought we know better?
Yeah. It's crazy,
because our country, Australia, this land is so different to what the land over in the UK is, to what the weather conditions in the UK, where those first migrants come from.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, fuck, we've got the ultimate knowledge keepers in our own backyard, and we're not listening.
Yeah.
So for me, connecting to that culture and understanding who we are at the core, and see, coming up to Australia Day, and I'm probably going on a bit of a rant here, but coming up to what we call Australia Day, 26th of Jan, for me, I'm like, we just need to change that date so that we can turn the page as a country and connect on a date that we can all celebrate.
Yeah.
To then come together as a country and go, no matter whether your background is indigenous, no matter whether you're as pale as they come from Scotland or England or Ireland or wherever you've migrated from in Europe or whatever part of the world, let's get together in Australia and now celebrate this day in the history of our country together and the full history. Yeah. And so there's so much we need to learn, and it first takes compassion. And I think you were pretty hard on yourself as a child, but as a child you were so impressionable. And when everything around you is saying one thing, it's hard to own your own beliefs.
Exactly.
And guy I spoke to recently on the podcast is an absolute gentleman and such a great character. Mr. Martin Heppel speaks a lot about fitting in versus belonging. And he said fitting in is when you're just going with the crowd. Belonging is when you are who you are, you're authentic, you own what your history is, what your culture is, who you are as a human being, and you belong in the world because that's how it's meant to be. And I think as a country we need to grasp that concept of belonging and come together no matter where you're from or what your background is. And we've got steps to take, but conversations like this help, right?
Fuck, that's mad. Yeah, I'm going to be stealing that for sure. Yeah. A sense of fitting in or belonging. So that was definitely me coming up. It's just trying to fit in. Yeah. But as I said, just getting older and then obviously going through that shit in high school and whatnot, coming into being a football player, and someone who helped me a lot with my belonging was actually Joel Thompson. I don't know if you remember him.
I've heard really good things about him as a bloke. People reckon he's a great fella.
He's a great fella. He did a lot of community stuff, and when I was coming through the Dragons, and then he was doing a lot of it, I was kind of, okay, well, I'll go back and try and find out some more about who I actually am. And then my mum was the same as well. Like, she was on the same journey of finding out who we are and as people, and connecting more with my Indigenous side of my family. And like I said before, I'm fucking so just lucky and blessed to have beautiful people and family members, and they all just want to help and just like uplift you. And it's really inspired me to just really, we've gone back and learnt so much, and then being able to take that knowledge and then take it out and spread that throughout, like schools. We go to schools, and like, I won't say like, hey guys, I'm Josh Kerr, I play for the Dragons. I'll say, hey, I'm Josh Kerr, I'm a proud Aboriginal man from the Quandamooka Nation of Stradbroke Island. Like, that's what I'd tell the kids. And then you just see these little kids just, what is that? What are all these words? But then you get to educate kids. So it's pretty cool. And then getting just growing up and then going, like, very luckily being picked up for this All-Stars, my very first ever All-Stars, going in there and then seeing how strong everyone was with their culture. And then going, fuck, like, this is just, it was just all hitting me at the same time, like wanting to learn, and then going in there and then being around the other boys that were proud of who they were, and it makes you want to be proud. So then like, I don't know, it wasn't a competition or anything, it was just seeing other boys and fuck how proud and how knowledgeable they were. I wanted to be like that, like Cody Walker, Latrell Mitchell, Josh Kerr, and I was just sort of shocked. So my journey's been a bit of a different than everyone else's, but I guess hopefully it all come together for one reason one day. I hope so.
And brother, and that's the thing. Like, you speak of the pain of your past there, and not appreciating it at the time, but it makes you probably more aware of how you need to represent it right now in the present. Yeah. And maybe your impact now will be greater for the pain that you feel from the past, and the way that you then push that message and share that message with the people who look up to you now, the way that you'll share that message and allow your children in the future, if you decide to have any, to understand your culture. Like, that's amazing. That's the goal, right? As a community and as a country to evolve.